Can you all hear me? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Yeah. Please reciprocate also. It shouldn't so happen that I feel that I'm not speaking to humans, rather walls. Okay. We're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the first canto, chapter 17 and text number 16 is what we'll be discussing today. So the name of the chapter is Punishment and Reward of Kali. So have we recited the Shaloka, Varun Prabhu?
Not yet, Prabhuji. We were yet to start.
Okay, so please repeat after me. Rajnaha
Rajnaha
of the king or the executive head.
of the king
Of
or
the king or the
executive head.
He
He
certainly.
certainly.
Paramaha
Paramaha
supreme.
supreme.
Dharmaha
Dharmaha
occupational duty.
occupational duty.
Swadharmastha
Swadharmastha
one who is faithful to his prescribed duty.
one who is faithful to his prescribed duty.
Anupalanam
Anupalanam
giving protection always.
giving protection always.
Sasataha
Shashataha
while ruling. Anyan
Anyan
others.
others.
Yatha
Yatha
according to.
According to
Shastram
Shastra,
rulings of scriptures.
rulings of
of
scriptures.
scriptures.
Anapati
Anapati,
without danger.
without danger.
Without danger.
Athan
Utpathan
persons going astray.
persons going
Going
astray.
astray.
Iha
Viha
as a matter of fact.
as a matter of
Matter of fact.
Rajno hi paramo dharmaha
Rajyo hi paramo dharmaha
Swadharmastanupalanam
Swadharmasthanupalanam
Shashato anyanyatha shastram
Shasato anyanyatha shastram
Shastram
Napadi utpaniha
Napadyutthaniha
Rajno hi paramo dharmaha
Rajyo hi paramo dharma
Dharma anupalanam
Swadharmasthanupalanam
Shashato anyanyatha shastram
Shasato anyanyatha shastram
Anapadi utpahaniha
Napadyutthaniha
Rajno hi paramo dharmaha
Rajyo hi paramo dharma
Dharmastanupalanam
Swadharmasthanupalanam
Ashato anyanyatha shastram
Shashto anyanyatha shastram
Apadi utpathan iha.
Anapadyutthaniha.
Translation. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give protection to law-abiding citizens and to chastise those who stray from the ordinances of the scriptures in ordinary times when there is no emergency. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the scriptures, there is mention of a pad dharma, or occupational duty, at times of extraordinary happenings. It is said that sometimes the great sage Vishwamitra had to live on the flesh of dogs in some extraordinary dangerous position. In cases of emergency, one may be allowed to live on the flesh of animals of all description. But that does not mean that there should be regular slaughterhouses to feed the animal eaters, and that this system should be encouraged by the state. No one should try to live on the flesh in ordinary times simply for the sake of the palate. If anyone does so, the king or the executive head should punish him for gross enjoyment. There are regular scriptural injunctions for different persons engaged in different occupational duties, and one who follows them is called Swadharmastaha, or faithful in one prescribed duties. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.48, it is advised that one should not give up his occupational prescribed duties, even if they are not always flawless. Such swadharma might be violated in case of emergency if one is forced by circumstances, but they cannot be violated in ordinary times. The state executive head is to see that such swadharma is not changed by the followers, whatever it may be, and he should give all protection to the followers of swadharma. The violator is subject to punishment in terms of the Shastra, and the duty of the king is to see that everyone strictly follows his occupational duty as prescribed in the scripture. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasvai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruhu Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavnavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to the law-abiding persons and to chastise those who stray from the ordinances of the scriptures in ordinary times when there is no emergency. So, the chapter is named as the punishment and reward of Kali. Now we all understand how did the Kali Yuga enter. And would you like to throw some reflections on that based on your understanding of how the Kali Yuga has entered in the material world? Are you all there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So anyone who would like to share your understanding of what you know of how the Kali entered into the kingdom of?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
प्रभुजी कली का जो प्रभाव है वो इस तरीके के लोगों में द्वेष बढ़ गया है, अत्याचार बढ़ गया है, मनुष्य राक्षस में परिवर्तित होता जा रहा है, उनकी प्रवृत्ति बिल्कुल राक्षसी होती जा रही है और लालच, भोग, विलास, ये सब चीजें कली का रूप है जो इस समय हर मनुष्य में दिखता है. This is my understanding.
Well, that is a perfect understanding. There is no doubt about it that now we humans have actually become very demoniac. And this is very sad. If we go by the words of the scriptures, it is shared with us that we as humans are born pure because we do not the reality of the life is that we're not the body, we are a soul. And if we are a soul, then in that case, we are all born very pure. And there is nothing that can contaminate the soul at all. Unfortunately, the moment the soul comes in contact with the three modes of nature, what happens is that it gets polluted. And thereafter, we start developing vices as to likes and dislikes, good and bad, summer or winter. And we all know that these are dualities of life. Having said that, what may be happiness for me may not be happiness for you. Or what may be sadness for me may not be sadness for you. So what does that indicate? That in reality, there is nothing called happiness or sadness. It's just a perception of the mind. So having said that, Kali enters where we would have to understand that today. If you would have all heard, whenever we hear of something which is pretty perverted or what humans must be doing, we all of a sudden think, कलयुग आ गया या तो कलयुग है बट ये कलयुग है कहाँ पे? Where is this कलयुग? Do you all have idea about this? कि ये कलयुग है कहाँ पे है ये कलयुग? आपको कहाँ देखने को मिलता है ये कलयुग? बताइए, किसी को कुछ पता है तो if any one of you knows.
गोल्ड में, अनाचार में, दुष्प्रवृत्ति में.
आपका नाम क्या है?
भक्ति पंथ.
Alright, so माता जी हरे कृष्णा. देखिए, गोल्ड में है, इस पे तो कोई शक नहीं है, पर तब भी हम देखते हैं कि पूरी दुनिया सोने के पीछे ही पागल है. अगर गोल्ड में कलयुग का वास है, तो फिर जैसे ही हमें कोई उपहार में सोने की चीज देता है, तो हम उसका तिरस्कार क्यों नहीं करते? क्या हम चाहेंगे कि हमारे घर पे कलयुग का वास हो? अगर आपको पता हो कि कोई चीज अशुभ है, there is something which is not very auspicious, and someone gifts you that, or for that matter, if you were to buy that yourself, आप कभी उसमें इन्वेस्ट करोगे जो एकदम अशुभ है, inauspicious है? बिल्कुल भी नहीं. हम ऐसे बिल्कुल नहीं करना चाहते हैं. बट हमें मालूम है कि कलयुग का वास होते हुए भी हम उसमें लग रहे हैं. ये कारण क्या होता है कि कलयुग का वास एक्चुअली गोल्ड में तो है, इस पे कोई शक नहीं है, there's no doubt about it. But having said that, where is Kalyuga most prominently seen is the question. The Kalyuga,
in excess.
Sorry?
In excess.
Yes, but where is it most prominently seen? This is a very important question that we all need to ponder upon today. That if we are trying to see Kalyuga outside in the world, then this is not the right approach to experience the ill effects of Kali. The best way to understand that the Kali Yuga has its first presence inside our own mind. Does that make sense to all of you?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
For the fact, if Kali Yuga won't be in our own mind, then in that case, we won't get bewildered, but we are all bewildered. Imagine we consider ourselves to be so advanced as human species, isn't it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we can do things of this world that probably no one else can do. We've created artificial intelligence. We've created such superior modes of transport. We've created a mobile gadget with which, sitting in any part of the world, you can connect with anyone, anywhere. So who could be more evolved than us? Yet, despite of so much of advancement, we see that we are bewildered. And the reason of our bewilderment is the presence of Kali inside our own consciousness or mind. Unless and until we figure out ways to get rid of this ill effect of Kali from our own mind, we are not going to see anything the way it should be. Very difficult. So ये कहना जी कलयुग है कलयुग, आजकल तो कलयुग के बाहर कुछ हम ऐसा देखते हैं, something which is very very obnoxious और टॉक्सिक, हम क्या कहते हैं कलयुग है। अरे वो कलयुग क्यों है? क्योंकि कलयुग पहले तो हमारे मन में है। एंड जितना भी वियर्ड और जितना भी अननेचुरल इस संसार में हो रहा है, that is only happening because of a human being, not because of an animal. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
At the kingdom of Maharaj Yudhishthir or Parikshit Maharaj, the bull was being beaten by the Kali's incarnation only. Agree, disagree?
ये
Ji,
Yes.
agree.
And that was a human incarnation, personification of Kali Yuga for that matter. So from there we can understand that the Kali Yuga has its most prominent presence inside our own consciousness or mind. So the first and the foremost important duty of any human is to work on consciousness building. Failing which, anything of this world will not appear the way it should be. Now, how many of you think that this world is a very beautiful place to live?
Not very, Prabhuji. A bit beautiful.
A bit beautiful, but what is the beauty of this world? You say not very much, but a bit beautiful. So could you please categorize what is not very much beautiful and what is very beautiful?
Actually, we are not like other species of the other creatures of the world. Human body given by God is very important, and we can take lots and lots of Harinam for praying and going back to Godhead.
You're right, partially, but I'll tell you. Yeah, someone says nature is beautiful. Yes, nature is beautiful because the creator of the nature is also very beautiful. So certainly there are no flaws anywhere in the universe or its functionality or anything that we see around us which is being blessed by nature. Unfortunately, the flaws are only in how you look at it. Yes or no?
Yes, Prabhuji.
yes Prabhuji.
Only in how we look at it. Something that is very beautiful today is being ruined only by vicious human endeavors to satisfy their personal whims and fancies. And therefore, when we are hit back or when we are reverted back in a very, very hard way, we are bewildered, we don't really know how to react. For example, global warming. For example, famines and droughts or floods. You tell me which government of the world is able to manage these things effectively despite of so many disaster management techniques that they have. So this
No
is
one.
this
None.
is all ill effect of Kali that is situated here. Why? Because our mind creates the plan and that plan manifests. And then we get into the vicious cycle of karmic reactions. And then, this is like a whole web. Whether you do it or someone else do it, it has to come back in some or the other form and has to show its impact. So, punishment and reward of Kali. So now, this particular verse speaks about the duty of a ruling king. That is to give all protection to the law-abiding citizens. Now, what are the laws that citizens must abide? Ideally, one needs to know, correct? So what laws we are aware of is to be abided by, a so-called citizen of a country is only well-defined as per the constitution of the country that you live in. Agree, disagree?
Agree.
Agree.
However, The constitution, or the one who has created the constitution, has also failed to understand that first we need to define laws that make someone human. Unless and until we have well-defined understanding of human life, all of these laws that you make cannot be adhered to the way they should be. For example, I'll give you an example. We know that we should not cross the red light. We should stop and we should wait for it to be green, and then after we should move. But how many times do we care to follow? Not in India, many times people do. And moving ahead, so much that we see around us that is expected by the citizens of a particular country or a region to adhere to is not followed. Why? Because they are not aware of the value of human life. Ideally, discipline can be taught only to humans. Believe me, when you train a dog properly, he becomes very disciplined. You ask him to stand up, eat, sit down, he does. But you see, when a human is bewildered or is arrogantly acting, no matter how much you tell him or her, he would not care to respond. Or he would respond only the way he or she wants to. Agree, disagree?
Yes, sir.
Agree.
So therefore, first we need to have right rulers or the leaders who could lead the whole society together and could show them a path. And that path has to be achieving understanding of who we are. Unfortunately, neither the rulers or the politicians, so-called, and the dependents or the citizens of this world are aware of it. Therefore, there's so much of chaos. We say that we are living in democracy. We choose our leaders, and those leaders, they fail to meet our expectation, and then the whole chaos starts again. But in case of a ruler which is well governed with the Vedic injunctions, when he is given the responsibility to take care of the citizens, he does not merely treat them as citizens and rob their livelihood. He takes care of them as his dependents, and his duty is to see that everyone in his kingdom or under his rule is well nurtured and taken care of. Now, that's an ideal ruler. And obviously, when someone doesn't behave properly, then he must be punished also. Moving forward, it says that one should never give up his occupational duty. For example, we are all situated in different situations of life. In this forum, wherein we have all joined to hear Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, I'm sure we have those who are single, those who are married, and those who are probably grandparents, fathers, mothers. So now, understanding that we have all of these positions or titles associated to our existence, do not we have a well-defined role to play? Yes or no?
Yes.
For example, if we are given employment in a company, before you are called for a round of a meeting or an interview, you are shared the job description, which is expected out of you to perform when you are hired on job, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Thereafter, you are considered for a personal round of meeting and you qualify and you get a job. So there also you have a role to play. Similarly, every citizen has a role to play in the country. But that role has to be well defined. What is it that is expected out of a citizen to perform? And when he deliberately or out of his vicious intentions violates the radius in which he should be acting or performing a particular task, he is liable for a punishment or a disciplinary action. Why? Because we have to create a system where people should consciously follow in order to take care of the management of a particular kingdom properly. Like the way it said that Vishwamitra had to live in the flesh of dogs in some extraordinary dangerous positions. And we also know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, while sending his disciples to the West, had requested that, look, preaching is more important. In any case, if you do not have supply of vegetarian food that can be cooked and offered to the Lord, I am all right with the fact that you should sustain yourself on probably non-vegetarian and continue the mission of the Lord, which is more important. So in extraordinary circumstances where there is no facility of adhering to what has been defined, you are given a little independence to deviate and accept as per time, place, and circumstance. But imagine if we humans were to live so consciously that whatever we do, we think about it, we understand it from the point of view of scriptures, whether is it to be done or not to be done. Do you think that there would ever be any chaos in your life? Actually, no. Isn't it?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Therefore, in the purview of Krishna consciousness, devotees are expected to maintain a very regulated lifestyle, wherein it is expected that you first take few vows in front of your spiritual master and abide by those vows for the rest of your life, which actually doesn't make you a devotee, because to be a devotee is a very, very higher position, which actually makes us a human first. The tragedy is we, despite of the fact of having a human body, doesn't have a consciousness that well defines human existence. Therefore, anything which is very derogatory and deteriorating is what is expected out of the humans and is seen by being practiced by them. And this is the ill impact of Kali Yuga, which could be in the gold, which could be in slaughterhouses, which could be in brothels or red light areas, but is first inside our own mind. And this is a very, very important subject that we need to ponder upon. Therefore, anytime we get bewildered, not anytime, we're usually bewildered most of the time. So whenever we think that we are deviating from where we should not be, it is very, very essential that you please call out for assistance, and ideally assistance of someone that you can trust, assistance of someone who is your well-wisher and will actually guide you without judging you. There is no other way to achieve perfection, because we as humans are bound to fall down if we are not properly situated. And the biggest difficulty is we are slipping away so swiftly, but we think we are fine. We're actually not. We're actually not. Therefore, community meetings where we describe about the subject matters that has concerned with the glories of the Lord, Kirtan, Prasad, must happen on a regular basis. This is the only life force for our devotion. For example, Varun Prabhu was talking to me that in this forum, you all want to go to Puri and Mayapur, isn't it?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
If you all really want to go to Puri and Mayapur, then you must ensure that one period of a year you must fix only for Puri and Mayapur. Why? Because you would see that'll help you enhancing your devotion. The moment you will get out of where you are today to a place of a spiritual pilgrimage, you would see immediate transformation in the consciousness, immediate transformation in consciousness. And you would see how swift a spiritual life becomes, where at times you really have to struggle to chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. You see, you know what? It's very, very funny. Now I'll have to tell you that. If you actually want to know who a devotee is not the one who chants 16 rounds. A devotee is the one who can chant incessantly without any fixed number. But Prabhupada knew how fallen we are, therefore he had to quantify it to a number and said, fine, 16, and engage yourself in services. Why? Because he knew that it's very difficult. You know, the jivas in Kali Yuga would not be able to give a very high degree of commitment towards unlimited numbers of chanting rounds. But the perfection, or we don't become devotees when we chant 16 rounds, we actually become devotees when we chant unlimitedly, when we chant all the time. Now, for example, I was recently in Vrindavan in Kartik, and I will tell you of a very sweet pastime of Srila Prabhupada that Sachinandan Maharaj in a Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class narrated. And I was really touched. He said, very rarely we had the opportunity to have personal association of Srila Prabhupada because he was extremely busy. And usually the only time when we could get his association was lectures. Now, he said, once I had this craving that I must know what he does in his private space. And he said he was on the first floor in an apartment in Germany, and I was on the ground floor. Through a rope, I got into the balcony of his apartment. And I saw very peacefully Srila Prabhupada lying down and taking rest. But I could observe one thing that was very unusual. And that was that his lips were moving and he was chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. This is the symptom of a devotee. And wherever in scriptures you hear of a devotee, this is not for devotees like us. This is an indication only for a pure devotee. Only for a pure devotee. For no one else. That this is spoken about. And Srila Prabhupada is one such pure devotee who's leading the Hare Krishna mission all the time, even in Samadhi. And actually telling you, much more Srila Prabhupada has done after getting into Samadhi. Not before. Before he said, my task is incomplete. But you see, after that he has disappeared, how beautifully ISKCON has expanded even more vigorously and vastly, practically all over the world. This is the glory of an Acharya, that even if he is not physically present, he is still functioning. And how does he function? He functions on the basis of his dedicated disciples. So this platform on which we all congregate every day and discuss the glory of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is not what we are qualified to do. But since Srila Prabhupada is extremely kind and merciful, he wants us to understand the value of being humans. Therefore, he says that this is the only way that we can become perfectly situated as humans. And imagine if everything that you have spiritually with you is disappeared one morning that you wake up. Won't you be bewildered? And even if you would be, you would probably try to preserve few things that you have with you. But believe me, with time, you would see that we'll be in a complete zone of being ignorant. We'll fall so badly that we may completely forget that there is something called Krishna, or his consciousness, or devotees, or association, or prasad. So in a way, we'll be in a deep, deep, deep soup from which coming out would be practically very, very hard. And this is where we originally come from. And how have we got out of it is only because of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. That he, through someone, picked us up. So another principle that we really need to know is that if tomorrow we all become very successful preachers and we think that we need to take the credit, believe me, that won't be the good idea, because the preaching is always done by an acharya. What we are doing is we are trying to follow the footsteps of an acharya. So therefore, we are no preachers. We are no speakers of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We are just repeating of what we have heard. This develops the mood of being extremely humble. And if one can develop this mood, believe me, he is the right recipient of the love of Godhead. No one else. There is no other way to achieve love of Godhead. And we all know, okay, through our sadhana, we can. Now just ask yourself, how much sadhana or how sincerely are we practicing our sadhana every day? Prabhupada just gave us 16 rounds, but then chanting those 16 rounds also is so difficult that we have so many reasons of not doing it, or even if doing it, not doing it very sincerely. And then the impact of the Kali Yuga is on the mind. So obviously when you sit to chant, practically the whole world is in front of you. And Krishna is not going to appear while you are chanting his holy name and not considering him to be present in his name, but you are loitering everywhere else in this world mentally. So this is the irony. We have actually been blessed with human life, but unfortunately, we're not making amazing benefits out of it because it takes a lot of hard work and courage. I therefore request all of you, that you all should come forward and should figure out plans wherein you can invite more of devotees who can do some workshops, probably online workshops for you. But now that we see that the impact of the COVID is not as vigorous as it was, you all must plan to visit in some spiritual pilgrimage wherein you're all attentively hearing, practicing, and living the life of a sadhu. Only through this you would have spiritual rejuvenation and a reason to carry on. Otherwise, a lot of this, regular thing may also not work for a very, very long time. I mean, it doesn't really work for me. Therefore, we are all subject to changes, and those changes should ideally vigorize our spirituality. Like, for example, I was recently in Vrindavan. The experience was extremely blissful. Everything in Vrindavan is so spiritually potent, starting from the leaves, the trees, for that matter, the animals. What to speak of devotees, are so exalted. Even the mud of Vrindavan is so potent that if it touches your body, you would practically forget all of your miseries in this life. So, here it is written, there are regular scriptural injunctions for different persons engaged in different occupational duties. And one who follows them is called Swadharmas Taha. What is our occupational duty? Our occupational duty, the first occupational duty that we have is to take care of the vows that we have given to our spiritual master. And in case if there is a problem in adhering to the vows that you promised in front of your spiritual master or are aspiring to promise, if there is a difficulty, you should not shy to keep it to yourself. You should ideally come forward and should share it with someone that you can trust and come out of it, or figure out a solution that if it's hard to come out of it, you figure out a way to live with it, but without any regret or complaint. Why? Because if your mind is not peaceful or happy, it is very difficult to become a happy devotee, or actually a devotee or a sadhaka. A sadhaka means peaceful mind. So the first priority that you should have in your life is to have a peaceful mind. Because if the mind is not peaceful, it's very difficult to practice anything. Very, very difficult. So here, today, we have discussed about how the Kali Yuga has impacted our life. Where is Kali Yuga actually situated? What are the duties of a ruling king? And the glories of Srila Prabhupada? What is our occupational duty? And I'm sure with my little presentation of my understanding of this verse, I've been able to help you. So Varun Prabhu, till what time can we continue?
We can continue, Prabhuji. It's anyhow it's Sunday, and usually we go till 8:45, and then we'll have question answers. So it's
Okay,
up to you, Prabhuji.
sure. So I think we are sitting at 8:38 right now. And if you all have questions, we would probably invest more time taking questions. Why? Because I'm sure, we all have some difficulties that we need some clarification on. So let's have question and answers now. And I would like all of you to come forward to ask some questions that you think has relevance to your spiritual life or probably to this verse.
Hare Krishna. If any devotee has any question, you can unmute your mic and ask, or you can type in the comment box.
So how many of you want to go to Puri and Mayapur, by the way?
Prabhuji, I was planning because in Christmas to 25th December to 1st January, I have a leave. So it's a mandatory leave for all IT companies.
This is very good.
Mhm.
So how many of you are actually wanting to go to Puri and Mayapur? My God, there's no response. So it seems no one wants to go.
People have devotees have raised hand. Usually.
We want to go.
How many, one second, let me see how many hands are raised. I'm feeling to visit Mayapur. Sneha to everyone. That's really good. 1 second. So how many hands are raised? Oh yeah, my God. 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8. That's really good. So what are you all waiting for? You all must plan. This is the best time. The weather is so beautiful. And in fact, Varun Prabhu is so rightly telling us that he has his mandatory leave that has to be taken or will lapse. So why don't you make the best use of it?
Prabhuji, waiting for the next month to come.
Waiting for the next month to come. So, but the plans have to happen in advance, right? So you all
It's
must.
already booked.
Oh, that's beautiful. Perfect. Perfect. Very nice. So any one of you have any questions so far as this particular verse or your spiritual life is concerned?
Prabhuji, in spiritual life, some habits are really hard to go, but with the association, we are able to cope up. Like I was used to sleeping a lot and outside food, these two habits, and then considering this, committing to a spiritual master, it becomes difficult how to commit then.
You see, I'll tell you something. Now, actually telling you, if we look at the mercy of the spiritual master is that if we sleep a lot and eat food, offered food to the Lord, ideally you're not breaking your spiritual principles, right? But then we must be very conscious that if we are practicing spirituality, things have to happen in a very, very regulated and a disciplined way. So, right time to sleep and right time to wake up is very, very important. Why? Because your spiritual practices needs the best time investment. So, for example, if you wake up in the morning and chant your rounds, even if your mind doesn't support, believe me, that chanting is much better than the chanting that you do during the latter part of the day. Even if your mind doesn't support, believe me, it's much better than doing something during the rest of the day. So even if at times you have to compel yourself for chanting or hearing, you should do that. Believe me, slowly and slowly the mind will start sinking in and you'll probably figure out to the pace of what you are practicing. For example, you're hearing a lecture, so you don't really want to. So in the beginning, the mind may retaliate, but you would see eventually the mind would pick up something that the mind would get very comfortable to and would start relishing. And this is the nature of the mind. That at times it's extremely violent and at times it's extremely peaceful. So you, out of your own nature, should try and understand what is the best time that I can figure out wherein I can give my best to my spiritual practices. Now, if you're very fond of eating, and for example, you get an X item that you're very fond of eating outside, you're married, you should ask your wife to prepare it for you at home. Or for that matter, we all have deities, we all offer food to the deities, and everything is available on YouTube. Why don't you get on and make it and offer it to the deities and relish it? There's no harm in it. Spiritual life doesn't mean being dry or dull. If you are fond of eating, you eat and eat the best. What is the harm? I hope I helped you.
Okay, Prabhuji.
There's another question someone has asked, so let me just check. What, even if you want to serve Vaishnava around you, people are not willing to take seva? Why so? There is this possibility that the Vaishnavas may not be very, very keen on accepting your service. Why? Because they do not consider themselves worthy of accepting service. And that is the symptom of an elevated Vaishnava. That he says that I'm not going to take service from anyone. Instead, I would offer service to everyone. Now you see that there are intelligent ways to serve a Vaishnava. Very, very intelligent ways to serve a Vaishnava. Someone that you really want to serve, and he's not willing to accept your service, what you should do? Ideally, you should figure out small loopholes wherein you can serve. For example, try to know what is his liking or disliking, number one. Try to know areas wherein you can really please or make him happy. And even if you can figure out nothing, if you see his slippers or shoes, clean them properly and place them back where they were. This is also a service to a Vaishnava. And believe me, when you do such menial services for a Vaishnava, that really purifies your heart. And this is the secret to success in spiritual life. Secret to success in spiritual life is nothing other than offering very menial services to Vaishnavas and seeking their good wishes and blessings. This will actually keep Bhakti Lata Beach very, very active, wherein you would be induced by their mercy to chant the holy name. Your mind will become very, very peaceful, and you would relish the kind of reciprocation that's coming back, serving that exalted Vaishnava. That's my understanding about it, because that's what I prefer to do. Anyone else with anything? So how to remain peaceful in provoking situations? Should we tolerate, remain them in association, and try and move away? Actually, so how to be peaceful in provoking situations? This is very, very difficult. How to be peaceful? You could not stay peaceful. That's all right. That I understand. But what best you could do is that you could not react to it. And take your time to understand the magnitude of the situation. Take your time, analyze, understand, and then react. But if you outrightly react, then certainly the reaction is not going to be very, very palatable. It will neither be very palatable for you nor for anyone else around you. So the best is to become very intelligent and to learn or acquire or develop this habit of not immediately reacting. Take your time. Understand the root cause. Where is it coming from? And how is it coming from? What could be the reason? Once that is clear to you, believe me, you'll be able to deal with these difficulties easily. It's not going to take a lot of time. Should we tolerate or remain in the association or try to move away? Okay, yeah, ideally telling you, it is hard to tolerate. You may not tolerate, but at the same time, may not immediately react. Hang on, think, figure out the reason. If possible, before reacting, share it with someone, take his advice, and then react. And believe me, this all is possible only via association and nothing else. So stay in association of good devotees. right? And keep practicing and become matured, become intelligent in a way that people look at you very respectfully, with the fact that in your association, they are able to grow. And that is the kind of association we need to create for everyone around us, that we are giving them a platform to stay with us and grow in spiritual life. And that is the duty of a devotee, that he induces everyone else to become a devotee. Right? So, anyone with any other question, query, clarification? All right. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. If any devotee has any further question, you can go ahead and ask. Otherwise, we'll offer Vaishnava Pranam and conclude the session. Hare Krishna. All right, Prabhuji. So we
Thank
can
you.
conclude. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for a wonderful session, Prabhuji. So we'll offer Vaishnava Pranam and conclude the session. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्री श्री राधा कुंज बिहारी भगवान की जय, श्री श्री गौर निताई की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. All glories to assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.